Europe resists and reacts to efforts by the US government to eliminate diversity, equity and inclusion, or DEI initiatives in the continent.
A national strike paralyzed Belgium's public transport, its air traffic and other public services.
Consumer associations warned that European air passengers could face further difficulties in obtaining compensation for delays in the future.
The death toll from Myanmar's earthquake rises to over 1,700, while more than 300 are still missing.
Efforts by the US government to eliminate diversity, equity and inclusion, or DEI initiatives in Europe have not gone down well in the continent. The European Commission acknowledged awareness of a letter sent by the US administration urging companies to drop DEI programs.
We are aware of the letter that was sent by the US administration to the companies. We need to know a bit more details before we react. And as you know, and as you've pointed out, anti-discrimination and equality is based on our main values.
In France, resistance has been particularly strong after reports emerged that the US State Department demanded that French companies abandon inclusion policies, which are part of national as well as EU law. Le Figaro published what it claimed was a copy of the letter, stating that an executive order signed by President Donald Trump in January applies globally to all suppliers of the US government. French Foreign Trade Minister Laurent Saint-Martin told RTL Radio that France would not compromise on these principles. Belgium also pushed back against perceived US interference. Finance Minister Jean Jambon declared, "We have no lessons to learn from the leader of America." In a joint statement, Belgian Foreign Minister Maxime Prevot and Equal Opportunities Minister Rob Beenders condemned the move as a step backward, asserting that diversity and inclusion strengthen economies and societies. In Spain, Barcelona's mayor announced his municipal government will defy Trump's rollback of DEI initiatives, which had impacted cultural programs hosted by the city. Across Europe, leaders have stressed that diversity and inclusion are non-negotiable, a reflection of deeply held values rather than mere buzzwords.
Belgium's public services and transport were heavily disrupted, and the country's two largest airports came to a standstill as a result of a nationwide strike. The Christian and Socialist trade unions organized the strike in protest against budget cuts announced by the government. These would impact pensions, unemployment benefits, public services, and the labor market.
Aujourd'hui, c'est vrai que le mouvement est très suivi parce que les gens en ont ras-le-bol. Il n'y a personne qui a envie de travailler jusqu'à 67 ans pour gagner moins d'argent.
Brussels Airport cancelled over 200 outbound flights and most incoming flights, while there was no in- and outbound traffic at Charleroi Airport altogether. Meanwhile, public transport across Flanders and Wallonia has been severely disrupted. Several schools are closed and certain public services are also at a standstill.
Ik snap het wel, maar aan de andere kant, er zijn ook veel mensen die naar werk moeten, die moeten studeren. Dus het is ook moeilijk voor hun. Maar ik snap ook wel wat zij willen. Maar of ze het gaan krijgen, dat weet ik niet.
De regering trekt er zich niks van aan, want de stakers, zij raken ons in plaats van wie eigenlijk moet geraakt worden.
Many Belgians feel let down by their government, and strikes are becoming increasingly more common across the country. Another nationwide strike also took place in February. Tens of thousands of people had swept the streets of Brussels to protest.
European air passengers could face new difficulties in obtaining compensation for flight delays. The European Union is currently revising regulations dating back to 2004. At present, compensation is available for delays of 3 hours or more. However, current negotiations could result in new rules that civil society believes will be unfavorable to consumers.
Maintenant, ce qui se passe, c'est que la Commission a proposé de modifier ce temps pour pouvoir bénéficier de la compensation. On ne serait plus à 3 heures, mais on serait à 5, à 9, à 12 en fonction de la distance. Concrètement, quel impact ça va avoir? Il y a 85% des consommateurs, si ce qui est discuté actuellement est validé, qui n'auraient plus le droit à la compensation. Donc c'est un retour en arrière énorme par rapport à la législation de 2004.
Like civil society, the European airline industry is also hoping for a revision. But the association representing the industry, Airlines for Europe, believes that the European Commission's 2013 proposal, which is on the table, is a good basis. Poland, which holds the EU's 6 months presidency, has taken over the dossier and wants to make the best possible progress in negotiations between now and June.
Five people were killed and 4 injured after an explosion rocked a coal mine in northern Spain on Monday. 2 of the injured people were transferred to a hospital in a city nearby to be treated for burns. Another was taken to another neighboring hospital with a head injury. Local emergency services confirmed 2 other people were uninjured in the accident. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez offered his condolences to the relatives of the deceased and thanked emergency workers.
Russian strikes hit Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, late Sunday and early Monday, causing 6 explosions and injuring 3 people. Ukrainian authorities reported that drone attacks damaged residential buildings, cars, and a civilian business, sparking fires in production and warehouse facilities spanning over 3,900 square meters. Russia launched 2 ballistic missiles and 131 drones overnight, according to Kiev. In his nightly address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attacks, urging the US and its allies to increase pressure on Russia. Putin couldn't care less about diplomacy, he said, highlighting the daily brutality of Russian strikes.
Успіх дипломатії потрібен всім, крім Путіна. Отже, на нього треба натиснути заради успіху дипломатії та збереження життя людей.
The attacks left at least 13 buildings damaged, including a children's center with shattered windows and burned facades. Emergency services worked through the night to contain fires and assist the residents. European aerospace startup Isar Aerospace conducted the first test flight of its Spectrum rocket on Sunday, marking a milestone as the first attempt to launch a satellite rocket from European soil. The 28-meter-long 2-stage rocket took off from Andøya Island in Norway but crashed shortly after launch, exploding upon impact. Despite the crash, CEO Daniel Metzler called the test a success, citing a clean takeoff, 30 seconds of flight, and validation of the flight termination system. Isar Aerospace, based in Munich, aims to gather critical data from the test to advance its goal of launching small and medium-sized satellites into orbit.
The death toll from the earthquake that hit Myanmar on Friday has risen to more than 1,700, the country's military-led government announced on Monday. Authorities told local media that another 3,400 have been injured and more than 300 are missing. According to a Chinese embassy social media post, in the early hours of Monday, 4 people were rescued from the rubble by Chinese teams. The epicenter of Friday's 7.7 magnitude earthquake, which struck near Mandalay, caused many of the city's buildings to collapse and damaged its airport. Then on Sunday, a 5.1 magnitude aftershock hit the area again. Rescue efforts have been hindered by downed bridges, damaged roads, unreliable communications, and a civil war. However, on Saturday, Myanmar's resistance movement announced a partial ceasefire to facilitate rescue efforts. According to local media, many people have been left sleeping on the streets, either out of fear or aftershock, or because their homes were brought down. In neighbouring Thailand, at least 18 people have been confirmed dead since Friday's quake. On Monday morning, searches at a high-rise building in Bangkok, which collapsed, were still ongoing, as dozens of people are missing, according to authorities. The bodies of 15 medical and humanitarian workers have been recovered from a mass grave in southern Gaza after a week-long search. The victims include 8 members of the Palestine Red Crescent Society, 6 from the Palestinian Civil Defense and 1 from the United Nations. A top UN spokesperson said health workers should never be a target. According to the UN, the first team was killed by Israeli forces on March 23rd. Emergency crews sent to search for the missing workers were then hit over several hours. Their remains, buried alongside their wrecked emergency vehicles, were discovered by their colleagues in the southern city of Rafah. Israeli authorities, which coordinated access for the search party, identified the area where the bodies had been buried. Israel ended a ceasefire and renewed its air and ground war against the Hamas militant group earlier this month. On Monday, the Israeli military ordered an evacuation covering most of Rafah.
Muslims around the world are bidding farewell to the holy month of Ramadan and preparing to celebrate the Eid al-Fitr, a time of prayer, family gatherings and festivities. Thousands of Palestinians gather on Sunday at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem's Old City for Eid al-Fitr prayers. In Serbia, the Islamic community held its central Eid ceremony in the Arab Mosque in Novi Pazar, marking the occasion with communal prayers. In Lisbon, Portugal, Muslims gathered in outdoor prayer spaces. Families donned new clothes and visited loved ones, blending tradition with modern festivities. Meanwhile, in Mecca, millions of pilgrims and locals joined in mass prayers at the Grand Mosque, underscoring the spiritual heart of the celebration. While many communities rejoice, others face challenges. In Gaza, Palestinians marked the holiday amid ongoing conflict, with dwindling supplies and recent airstrikes casting a shadow over what is usually a joyous occasion. The timing of Eid depends on the lunar cycle, with moon sighting teams scanning the skies for the crescent moon that signals the start of the holiday.